Okay, so we said there is the moon and there is the sun. The moon receives from the sun. The Jewish people, they measure the months and their calendar and their holidays according to the moon, according to the moon. But they also have a connection to the sun. I mean, for instance, the holiday of Passover always has to come in the spring. Has to come in the spring. The Arabs, they have their calendar is based only on the moon. So sometimes they can have their holidays, Ramadan, whatever. Sometimes it'll fall in the summer, sometimes in the winter, because it makes no difference. Their whole holidays just go according to the moon. In America, for instance, the holidays have no connection to the moon whatsoever. It can be that the holiday of whatever it is, New Year's, can sometimes fall in the middle of the month and sometimes fall in the beginning of the month. It makes no connection. The Jewish people, they have both, but mainly the novelty of the Jewish people is that in addition to measuring according to the sun, they also measure according to the moon. In other words, they have both of them together. And the Jewish people, in a lot of ways, are compared to the moon because the job of the Jews is supposed to be to illuminate the darkness, to do away with the darkness of the night. And also the Jewish people like the moon because we see that the Jewish people, their fortune, if you want to call it, the waxes and wanes. There's sometimes when the Jewish people really, shining godliness, that's their idea. That's the job of the Jewish people. Like in the first temple, they were revealing God. And then there was all of a sudden the first temple was destroyed. Then then the second temple, they were revealing God again. And so it is in the time of the Moshiach. It says the moon is going to be full. So the Rebbe says, if so, we see that the job of the Jewish people is to full moon. So why is it that and all the holidays in Judaism, they all occur in the first half of the month when the moon is getting bigger. All the holidays of Judaism, in the first half of the month or in the middle of the month when the moon is full. Two exceptions. One exception is Chanukah, which occurs right at the end of the month. And the other exception is the Hasidic holiday of Yud Tet Kislev, which soon will be a national, whatever it is, official Jewish holiday, Yud Tet Kislev. Yud Tet Kislev is the day that the first Rebbe of Chabad got out of prison. He was put into prison under the threat of death, and miraculously he got out. And this was seen as an agreement from above that he could spread out these ideas of Hasidut, because he was put into prison because his enemies hated this Hasidic ideas that he was spreading out. They thought it was destroying Judaism, and in fact, it was destroying the improper attitude that Judaism had of isolating yourself and thinking about yourself and thinking about going to heaven and ignoring other people's needs. Only and be cliquey, only your type of people are okay and nobody else. And especially not having any, being afraid of the non-Jews and being shirking your responsibility to teach Torah to the non-Jews. Okay, up to now, it was really impossible to teach the non-Jews because it was very dangerous. But eventually, it would come the time, you're supposed to be waiting for this time that we can teach the non-Jews. And the Rebbe said, this is already right now. He said it, 40, 50 years ago. And so now we can actually teach the non-Jews about what is right and wrong. So that is the Jewish people. So why is it that these holidays come at the end of the month when the moon is getting smaller? So the Rebbe said the fact that the moon is getting smaller, that the light of the moon is getting smaller, is a sign that the moon is closer and closer to the sun. And says the Rebbe, this is a Kabbalistic idea, Jewish idea, that let's not forget that God is creating this whole business. So the sun also has a source. The sun is not the source of light. The sun is receiving also light from the source of light. The source of light. You want to call it spiritual light. You want to call it the form of light. You want to call it the idea of light, whatever. But the fact that there's light in the world that can give light, this does not come from the sun. The fact that the sun shines is because God put this this ability to shine, or put the whole idea of shining of light. God created this idea, potential of shining. So when the moon is dark, it approaches the sun. It's what it indicates is that it's not just approaching the sun, it's approaching the source of the light of the sun itself, something even higher than the sun. And this is going to be, it says, in the future where the moon and the sun will be equal. Both of them will shine even more than now. That's what's called the revelation of God's essence. According to this, now we can understand the reason why the New Year's Day, the birth of Torah Hasidut, Chag HaChagim, the holiday of holidays, it's called, not like all the other holidays, which are in the beginning of the month, but it's after the moon is full. Why? The same thing about Hanukkah, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, again, I just want to remind everybody, the Jewish people are the chosen people. What does it mean, the chosen people? We're chosen to set the whole entire world in the right direction. The Jewish people. And we're not talking about just automatically being a Jew. Automatically being a Jew means you have this potential. But this potential has to be brought into actual. And the actual means to put the whole world, connect the whole creation to the Creator. That every human being should realize, recognize, and even, feel, internalize the fact that we are creations and we're tremendously lucky and tremendously important. That every human being is tremendously important in God's eyes. And the proof is that God is creating us. With our circulatory system and our nervous system and reproductive system and our respiratory system and all these systems, every human being, God is creating them. He's creating the animals also, but human beings have the ability to appreciate. So people are infinitely more important than they think. If people really feel this, there won't be any more depression in the world. There won't be depression. People will realize that, hey, what am I getting depressed for? I mean, God is creating me. Let's see the way out of this thing. When let's say a person loses his job or whatever, there must be a reason. What am I supposed to do? God help me. You're not alone. You're not alone. That's the job of the Jewish people, to show the whole world, everyone in the world, how much God loves them. And that's why God gave the Torah, so that people will know what to do. So that's the whole novelty of Hasidut. Hasidut just comes to remind us of this fact, this Jewish people, who we are. Wake up, Jews. That's the secret reason of the Torah, the Tamia Torah. It's a new Torah, it says, it'll come from me. It's an incomparable, the meaning which will be in every word of the Torah, even more than the giving of the Torah. Like the rabbis say, the Torah that we learn now is just like wind compared to the Torah of the Moshiach. One of the big novelties of the day of the Moshiach, time of the Moshiach, and regarding to when we received the Torah on Mount Sinai, is the idea of the marriage. We talked about this last time, if you remember. Like we said before, when the Torah was given, we were just engaged to God. But the days of the Mashiach, we're going to be one totally. We'll consume the wedding. We'll complete the marriage. Then there will be, it says that the light of the sun in the Jewish people will be the light of the moon, the Jewish people will be the light, like the light of the sun. The Jewish people will not be just like the sun, the moon that receives from the moon that receives from the sun, a full moon. But the Jewish people will be also like the sun. God will give them everything. Also, the sun will be revealed that Jews and God are totally one. And we can say that this is also hinted at. Okay, this is what we talked about before. Yes, this is what we talked about before. Okay, and we can attach this to also the parsha of the week. The parsha of the week of Shabbos is Parshas Vayishlach. And also what is on the third and the fourth day, Yud Tes Kislev and Chav Tislev. This year it's going to be the fourth day and the fifth day. In any case, and also what we're going to read in Mincha of this coming Shabbos right? That we read the first part of Parshas Vayeshev. And that's what we read in Mincha. Talks about the birth of Yosef and his brothers. The novelty of Yaakov in Parshas Vayishlach, Yishlach Yaakov, and Yeshev is Yeshev Yaakov. Yaakov dwelled in the house, it was the land of his fathers. Legabi avodas of Parshas Vayetze, and told us the previous Torah portions. So this week's Torah portion is Vayishlach. Next week is going to be Vayeshev, and we read next week's Torah portion, at least the beginning of it, in the Mincha, right at the end of this coming Shabbat. So what is the difference between these 2 weeks, Vayishlach and Vayeshev, regarding all the previous ones? We talked about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and also we talked about Jacob also, right? What's the difference between Vayishlach and Vayeshev? This is talking about the finish, the completion of the work of refining the world that Jacob began. Ad Kedei Kach, that Yaakov is muchan, he says he's already prepared for the days of the Mashiach. Therefore it says Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim. That's what it says, that Jacob sent these messengers, angels, to Esav, to the land of Seir, that he sent to let him know that Yaakov said, I have finished my part, I'm ready for the Mashiach. The world, as far as I'm concerned, has been refined and purified. Now the time is, let's go together, me and you. Yaakov is spiritual, Esav is physical, the whole entire creation. Let's go together and receive the redemption, the new blessing, and revelation and the raising of the dead. Like it says, Avo el Adoni Seira, I will come together with you to Seir. That's what the place of it. And like in the days of the Mashiach, Yaakov was ready for the days of the Mashiach. This is already 4,000 years ago. 3,500. It says, V'siyam v'chosam apavtor, like it says in Vayishlach, v'olam moshim b'har Tzion, lishporis ha'ritzav. In the Haftorah, we'll learn that, God willing, tomorrow in the Chumash class. It says the ones that are saved, the Jewish people that are saved, they'll come from that mountain of Zion, Tzion, and they'll judge the mountain of Esav, and then God will have the rulership. There won't be any more church, there won't be any more enemies of Judaism. It will be pure Torah, commandments, Judaism, Mashiach, just like the prophets prophesied. Vayeshev Yaakov. Yaakov wanted to sit, it says next week, Yaakov wanted to sit in peace. He wanted, because all of a sudden came this whole story with Joseph. The brothers hated Joseph. And again, after Joseph was sold into Egypt and etc., and then he had Yaakov and all the tribes, they went down into Egypt. This is when Yaakov he went down into Egypt when he was 131 years old, and he died in Egypt when he was 147 years old, Yaakov. So Yaakov says he found peace and quiet until finally will be Shalva Mitis, there'll be true peace and quiet in the days of the Mashiach. Then there'll be the completion of Parab Shalom Nafshi, like it says by the first Rebbe of Chabad, my soul was redeemed in peace. Like the second Rebbe of Chabad explains, that the true idea of peace will be only in the days of the Mashiach. And what does it mean, peace? It means not that everybody's just going to sit in a lounge chair and look at the moon or something. No, the days of the Mashiach will be more dynamic. There'll be more interest, love, excitement in the Torah and in the commandments than up to now. That's what's called true peace. Because the essence of man is that he wants to fill his responsibility. It can't be that in the future we won't have any more responsibility. There will still be responsibility, but it'll be in a way of peace, in a way of wonderful enjoyment. I don't know if you've ever seen, there's some people who are expert musicians. And when they play their instrument, especially if it's calming music, so you can see that they're just in another world of calmness, another world of peace. The bad things in the world don't disturb them. I think that's the reason why there's always music in bar rooms and things like that, because music brings a certain degree of peace. But music is very dynamic. It's not like silence and quiet and doing nothing. No, you come in, the music is changing all the time. It's going up and down, and there's harmony, and there's different rhythms and things like that. So it's active. So it'll be in the future. The peace will be one of harmony and beauty. The difference between. So it says, Yaakov found 3 times in his life there was peace. First of all, there was when he was left alone by Esav. Now, Esav and him sort of make peace between them. Then there's going to be another time peace in Egypt when he's together with his son Yosef. And the final piece is going to be in the days of the Moshiach that he was preparing for. This is like the difference between the sun as it receives from the moon as it receives from the sun, and how it will be in the future when the sun and the moon are both receiving from the essence. Yaakov is compared to the moon. He's the small light. Yaakov is called small. Mi yakum Yaakov ki katanu. Small, the whole world was against him. And therefore, the Jewish people who are small, they measure according to the small one, the moon. According to what's known, that when the moon gets less and less, like God said, go and make yourself less than. In the beginning, God created the sun and the moon to be equal, and the moon complained, I don't want to be equal, and one should be bigger. And the God said, okay, the sun's going to be bigger, not you. Now you'll become the small light. This comes from the Rebbe as a result of what's called the breaking of the vessels of Tohu. That fell the sparks of holiness below. We talked about this before. That God wanted there to be the potential of evil in the world, but there can't be evil if there's God revealed. So God made this special thing, which is called the breaking of the vessels. The breaking of the vessels was that God created a certain spiritual level, which was very orderly, lights and vessels called Tohu, and he made it that purposely that this level would break, that the lights would sort of go away, and there would be a little bit of these lights would be attached to these vessels, and the vessels would scatter around the world. In any case, that's why there's pleasure and desires and lusts in this world, is because of this little bit of light of godliness which is stuck to these vessels that fell down. That's called the breaking of the vessels of Tohu. And from that, there's these little sparks of holiness. That's a little bit of light godliness which is on these vessels. And therefore, Nasisa Yerida to Spheres of Malchus. That's why the descent of this aspect of God, which is called God's kingship, that's the moon. That's the lowest of the 10 Sphirot. And it became a receiver. And it became a receiver, this level of Malchut, and it came down into the lower spiritual worlds. Here, up to now, we were talking about the lower levels. We're talking about the lower levels of the highest world, Atzilut. So to speak, God's mouth. That's the Malchut of Atzilut. And it came down into the lower worlds. Malchut, it comes down into the lower worlds in order to, right, this is the godly aspect of his kingship. So the sparks fell down. Now God's speech is also called Malchut, God's kingship. So there's 2 aspects of God's speech. God's speech, how it is, it creates the world. The world is God's speech. And there's also God's speech, how it is in the Torah. The Torah is also God's speech. So that's these sparks of holiness that come from God's speech. They come into the world to reorganize the world like a puzzle. It's all messed up. Right? You buy it in a box. That's like the sparks of Tohu. And the Torah comes to make order of the whole thing. That's the moon. The moon, as it is now, it has to receive from the sun. It had, why does it have to? Because that's like the sparks that fell down into the world. We have to elevate them, organize them. But Gemara Avodah, when we do finish all this organization and we do put everything in its proper place, and everything in the world is used for what God created it for, then the moon won't have to receive anymore. But the light of the moon will be the light of the sun. In fact, there'll be two lights, big lights like it was before. And maybe we could say that this is also hinted at by Yishlach. The whole idea of Vayishlach, what does it mean? That Yaakov, it says he sent angels in front of him to Esav. That Yaakov, that his source comes from this world of tikkun. Like we said before, Yaakov's thing is to fix up the world. Torah, to put order into the world. That the world should be exactly the way that God wants. Not egotism. That's Tohu. Tohu is separateness. Yaakov, that he's from this level of tikkun. This is the potential for the Torah. He sent these messengers, these angels, before him. What does it mean before him? Above him, to a level which is above him in level. What's above him? Esav. Esav is his brother to the source of the world of Tohu. It's something like the sun and the moon both of them receiving from a higher source. That's what Yaakov was able to accomplish. Yaakov, he got to this source of Esav, this level of the surrounding level, like we said, that no difference between bad and good, like the spider that receives from the palace of the king. Because according to the connection to Yaakov, so Esav became refined. Esav also went to his source, to this level of makifim, of Tohu, to, if you want to call it, God himself, the creator of bad and evil. Yaakov, when he went to the source and the creation of God and evil. So God says, listen, evil by me means nothing, good means nothing, but it doesn't mean anything. But I want good. That's what I want in my essence. Why? It doesn't make any sense. In order that we can draw down these levels of Tohu to him. So that's what Yaakov did. He went to above Esav in order to refine Esav. Shu b'chinas or panimi. Something like it says in also 24th chapter of Tanya, that Daniel, when he was thrown into the lion's den, and the lions didn't eat him up. Why not? A lion weighs like, 4 times as much as a person. A lion is tremendous. It's 10 times as strong as a person. It can tear a person up, especially Daniel. Daniel was not trained in any sort of, lion taming or something like that. He didn't know what to do. And there were tens of lions there. It says, and the lions didn't eat him. The lions were quiet. And it says afterwards, the advisors of, who was it, Nebuchadnezzar or whatever, that threw Daniel into the pit, the advisor said, maybe the lions aren't hungry. So he said, okay, I'll throw you in. And he said he threw the advisors, took Daniel out, threw the advisors in, and it said that their bones didn't even touch the ground. The lions ate them up in the air. They were so hungry. How was it that they didn't eat Daniel? It says because he was a holy person. So he was connected to the source of holiness. He was connected to the source of the lions. And the lions recognized this. The lions recognized this. And because they recognized it, so therefore they were tame. When he was there, they were tame. That's what I know nowadays. There's also people that they have some sort of a harmony with lions, whatever. They can tame them, they can talk to them, whatever. I don't exactly understand how that works, right? But Daniel did not have any of these things. The thing that tamed the lions and Daniel was the same thing like in Noah's Ark. Why all the animals were quiet. It's the same. There was this revelation of the creator of the universe in the creation. And the fact is that that's what really is now. We just don't see it. We don't feel it. But the lions felt it. The Yor Amaki Panini, the Yisyachtu Yachad. It says that was a miracle that the lions felt it. So that's what Yaakov wanted to do, to unite the surrounding level, which is above the creation, the source of creation, with the creation, that they should be united and that everyone should do what God wants, but do it with tremendous enthusiasm, because God is the source of life. This is all the Indian of the joining together of the moon and the sun, Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov is like the moon, Esav is like the sun. It's called an inside light that's Yaakov, and an Or Makif and a surrounding light, that's like Esav. Another way of saying it in Kabbalah is Mamalik Holmim, how God fills the worlds and how God surrounds the worlds, until the moon doesn't receive from the sun anymore. Why? Because it already finished and it was completed all of the refinements that it has to do of Tohu. The moon had to be made less and etc. But the sun, light of the sun and moon will be equal. The light of the moon will be like the light of the sun. Both of them will be equal. And all of this is especially in our generation now. And we're going to learn this, God willing, tomorrow. Wonderful, beautiful, encouraging, positive, empowering ideas, exciting ideas that our generation is the one that, even though it seems to be very dark, but nevertheless, it's just approaching the essence, as we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Here we have Hayom Yom. The Chabad saying for the day. My father said, Chassidut changes what exists and uncovers the essence of a person. The essence of a person is beyond estimation and assessment, because every Jew and essentially every human being is part of God's essence, and whoever holds a part of the essence is as though he holds the whole entire thing. Just like the essence of God is unlimited, so every detail of the Torah, whatever, is unlimited. This is like it says tzitzit, the garment that we have with strings coming out of it. It says that the strings are supposed to be the same material as the corner of the garment. The strings is like the creation of the world. It's like strings of godliness coming into the world. And the garment is like godliness. But nevertheless, the world is made from the same thing that the essence of God is made from. Therefore, because God created the soul to be created, and Chassidut reveals the essence of what the soul is, why we are created, and how this reason for being created is really the essence of our soul. That's what Chassidut reveals, the essence of the soul, the reason for creation, to reveal God here in every aspect of the creation. That's why God created it. We'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, 3:00 we'll have a class in Chumash.